All right, everybody, we'll get rocking and rolling here. I got the recording set up and going. Today we're talking about these forms that we had drafted by Brett Woodburn. The one in particular is the Touring Homes agreement, and this is a very non-threatening agreement that you can have with a potential buyer lead that allows you to legally and lawfully show properties to them without it being a exclusive buyer agency agreement. And in my opinion, after reading it, it's better written than that non-exclusive buyer agency agreement that we have through PAR. Um, Hopefully you guys got a chance to at least take a peek at them and read through and see what you thought. But in any event, I'll share my screen here now and we can take a look at them together. Okay, hopefully everybody can see this. Kong, do you mind reading us through this one and then we can mastermind about it and discuss it in general?
Absolutely. All right, let's start from the top here. Written agreement for showing and touring properties. Broker licensee, that's us, the buyers. Paragraph 1, services to be provided. This is the what. The sole purpose of this written agreement is for broker to provide you with broker's knowledge, skill, and training to help you locate and tour or visit properties that you might be interested in buying or leasing. Number 2, consumer notice. You were provided with a copy of the consumer notice that explains the different ways in which a Pennsylvania real estate agent can work with a consumer. You have chosen not to enter into any of those relationships with us at this time. So basically, the first thing you need to do is the consumer notice. Because by going through the consumer notice, that's where you can ask the buyer for agency. And if they refuse, then you pick this form. If they say, okay, well, fine, I'll sign a contract with you. You just sign them up with a normal buyer agency. Okay. So it's very important that that's probably the first step that you should take is the consumer notice. Number 3, no agency relationship. By signing this agreement, you are not hiring us as your agent, and we do not represent you. We will not submit an offer for you under this agreement, and you should not provide us with any information you think should be confidential. We do have certain non-waivable duties under the law, and we will abide by them. Okay. Does anybody know where the certain non-waivable duties are located?
Consumer notice.
Is that you, Tom?
Oh, yeah, sorry, on the consumer notice.
Yep.
Didn't realize I was on there.
Yep, that is correct. Written agreement, number 4, written agreement with another broker. Have you signed another written agreement, including a buyer agency contract with another broker? Yes or no? And if yes, please explain or provide a copy. Okay. So can I ask a question from there? What if they say yes? What are you going to do? Tim?
Sorry about that. I had to
okay.
run to the bathroom. What was your question?
Number 4, written agreement with another broker. Have you signed another written agreement, including a buyer agency contract with another broker? Yes or no? What if they say yes?
If they say yes, then I don't think we have the ability to enter into a contract with them. We need to, at that point, talk to them about, when is their contract up, or is it able to be terminated, agreed upon? Some agents don't want the fight and they're willing to terminate those agreements. Other agents want to hold the buyers to it, or maybe get a referral fee. So you really just have to explore and see what the situation is.
Correct. Okay, the terms, number
Kong.
5.
specifically, you're going to want to ask them too, whether it's an exclusive or non-exclusive buyer agency agreement these days, or one of these touring forms.
Yep. So you have to ask more questions and get to the bottom of it. Okay. If you have any questions with that, if you ever run into that situation, just contact Brooks, myself, or Tim. Okay. Number 5, term. The starting date and ending date, also known as the term, of this agreement is not set by law or by any association of realtors. The term has been determined as a result of negotiations between buyer and broker. The starting date is the date that both buyer and broker signed this agreement. The ending date will be 11:59 p.m. the day after the effective date, tomorrow, unless otherwise set forth below. Okay. So it has a clear-cut end date here. It says the ending date will be 11:59 p.m. the day after the effective date, tomorrow, the next day, unless you write something in under A, B, or C here. Okay. Lowercase a, ending date is blank AM or PM on the effective date. So you can have it end the same day, is what A is. B, ending date is AM or PM on X date. So you can extend it even further. So you can make B longer than what the term is set forth in paragraph 5. Okay. Or C, ending date is when either broker or buyer provides written notice that this agreement is terminated.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Diane.
What's the purpose? I mean, I always ask these questions up front, so I know I'm not wasting my time with a
Yeah.
buyer that is already working with an agent. So why would I meet the buyer and then go over this? Why wouldn't I do that ahead of time?
Can you say that again?
Sure. When a buyer calls up and says, I want to see this listing, all right? The first thing I ask the buyer is, are you working with an agent?
Mm-hmm.
If they say yes, why would I even take my time to take this buyer through a property if they're already working with an agent? Why would I wait to meet the buyer at the property and then find that out?
Correct. And that just depends on the scenario. Obviously, if you were the list agent and the buyer calls you directly and says, I have a buyer agency, but my agent is out of the area and can't show it, can you show the property to me? I've run into that situation before, and obviously your first reaction is, why can't your buyer agent show it? And, I mean, you all need vacations from time to time, and it happens, right? So for me, I think back to who I represent the seller, right? And in that scenario, if I show this buyer a house, and then the buyer agent can write it up and do whatever, but if I show the house to this buyer, because I know the property better than any other agent out there, because I'm the list agent, then I'm doing my seller a service and selling their house for them. Now, if it's a random buyer, if it's a random buyer that calls you and wants you to show another listing that's not listed by you or well listed by you, that's a business decision that you'll have to make. And questions that you'll have to ask that buyer. Hey, if I go out and show you this property, are you willing to buy a non-exclusive with me for this property? You can ask them right over the phone. If they say no, then just say, well, unfortunately, I can't show it to you. I need to get paid. Now, this form, though, as we go down further, Diane, you'll see you actually can get paid per property too. So you can say, yes, I can go show it to you, but it'll cost you $150.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So we'll go down here a little further then to number 6, broker's fee. Broker's fee is not set by law or by any association of realtors. Broker's fee has been determined as a result of negotiations between buyer and broker. Broker will not retain any amount under this agreement that is greater than broker's fee, regardless of the source. Broker's fee below will be paid by buyer on or before the end date unless otherwise stated here. Okay. So if there's another reason that you wouldn't collect a fee on the ending date, you would write it there. And then down below that is the fee per property and the fee per day. And you have the buyer initial wherever applicable. Okay. Number 7, agency agreement. You are allowed to hire a broker to represent you as your real estate agent. If you do hire a broker to represent you, then we will work with you and for you to help you purchase or lease a property. To hire a broker to be your buyer agent, you will need to enter into a different written agreement with broker, and we will negotiate the broker fee for those services at that time. That's your buyer agency.
Hey, Tom,
Yes.
it's Sue. If they've already prepaid to show properties that you have shown, are we basically saying if you then sign agency, they get that money back?
I think it goes into that later on in detail.
Okay,
Credit to broker's fee at settlement, number 14. So we'll get there then. Okay. But yeah, this form does have that in there. Okay. Number 8, the real estate recovery fund. Pennsylvania has a real estate recovery fund to repay any person who has received a final court ruling, a civil judgment, okay, against a PA real estate licensee because of fraud, misrepresentation, or deceit in a real estate transaction. The fund repays persons who have not been able to collect the judgment after trying all lawful ways to do so. For complete details about the fund, call this number. Okay. Number 9. Deposit money notice. When a consumer makes an offer to buy a house, it usually includes an initial payment called deposit money that would be held in escrow until the transaction proceeds. Broker will not accept payments of any deposit money regardless of the form of the payment and the person designated as payee for the purchase of any property under this written agreement. Broker is not your agent and will not work on your behalf to attempt to purchase or lease a property. Okay. So this is stating we're not accepting any deposit monies right now unless we have an agreement. 10, services to others. Broker and any of the licensees employed with broker may provide services to more than one party in a single transaction and may show other buyers the same properties that broker shows you under this or any other written agreement. This is in our buyer agency too. This is that little clause that says we're allowed to show the same house to different buyers. Okay. I had that question once because we've had agents in our office write offers to 2 different people on the same house, and it's not uncommon because of the low inventory. So that's your clause in this form and in the buyer agency that allows you to do so, and the buyer is agreeing to it. The client is agreeing to it up front. Okay. 11, privacy. When you tour or visit a property, you may be recorded or monitored without your knowledge or consent, such as by a Ring doorbell. You should not take photographs or videos of the inside of any property that you visit or tour without the prior permission of the owner. Okay. 12, conflicts of interest. Broker has a continuing duty to disclose if a conflict of interest develops between or among broker, licensee, and or buyer in any combination as soon as reasonably practical. 13, equal housing. Buyer will not deny or refuse to visit or tour a property with you based on race, color, religion, sex, disability, familial status, national origin, sexual orientation, or gender identity of buyer or owner. Okay. Credit to broker's fee at settlement. So here we go. If buyer hires broker to be buyer's broker, then broker may credit some or all of broker's fee earned under this agreement to the broker's fee earned under a buyer agency contract. So there you can credit them if you choose to. You can partially credit them, or you don't have to at all.
Hey Kong, I have a question.
Yeah.
So this is kind of not really part of this contract, but what do you consider permission from a seller for videoing? Because I've been working with out-of-town buyers. I have two of them. One just got under contract, another one that I've been doing videos for. And I put that in my showing request, but technically I don't get it. Like if it's an auto confirmation or confirm, I mean, technically I'm not getting seller's permission, but I write in there that I will be doing a video tour for my client.
Mm-hmm. Just
The
a quick
problem
text
is-
to the list agent.
So like if I don't get anything back, is that acceptable?
According to this, no.
Okay.
Just a quick text to the list agent. Hey, may I take a quick video for my out-of-town client? You know,
Okay.
that type of deal. But yes, according to this and the law, you're not supposed to just take photos of a house you're in without permission. Okay, any questions? Okay,
And jump over here to the broker fee agreement with cooperating broker. So this is one that Brett had designed and drafted because he didn't like, if you guys remember, the change of verbiage in our PAR one that basically if the seller breaches contract, the buyer's agent wouldn't be due and paid a commission because it has to be a successful transaction. So this one that he drafted is more properly worded, and as we get through it, you'll see where it defines that if the seller breaches contract, that buyer's agent is still due that fee.
okay. Broker fee agreement with cooperating broker, listing broker, cooperating broker, and property up top. Number one, terms. This agreement is effective as of the date that it is signed by authorized signers for the listing broker and cooperating broker, starting date, and it terminates on blank end date. If no end date is entered, then the term ends the earlier of the settlement date of the agreement of sale or the date that the agreement of sale is terminated, so long as the termination is not the result of seller's breach. If the broker fee is earned before the end date, then this agreement shall not terminate until the broker fee is paid. Okay? Broker fee. The listing broker agrees to pay cooperating broker at settlement blank dollars or blank percent of the purchase price of the property unless otherwise stated here. Okay. Number three, broker fee is earned. Broker fee is earned when the buyer enters into a binding contract during the term of this agreement to buy some or all of the property at any price. Any and all contingencies are satisfied, and buyer can settle on the property. Any closing or title agent is authorized to pay broker's fee to the cooperating broker from listing broker's fee at settlement. Buyer broker agreement. Cooperating broker has a written agreement with buyer that obligates buyer to compensate cooperating broker. Buyer's obligation to cooperating broker may be satisfied by a third party, including listing broker. Cooperating broker may not accept compensation from any source or sources that is greater than the buyer's obligation under the written agreement. So that's stating that you're not taking any more than what's on your buyer agency. Number 5, listing contract. Listing broker has a listing contract with seller that authorizes listing broker to offer and enter into a fee agreement with cooperating broker. Permitted and prohibited uses. This agreement may be used to confirm listing broker's offer of compensation that was published, and it may be used to negotiate the broker fee. This agreement may not be used with the terms of an offer to attempt to modify listing broker's offer of compensation and or be used as a condition of an executed offer to modify listing broker's offer of compensation. So basically, you can't use it as a negotiating tool for your buyer. Okay. Dispute resolution. Any dispute arising out of this agreement may be submitted to mediation and or arbitration. If the parties are both realtors, then arbitration shall be conducted in accordance with the National Associations of Realtors Code of Ethics and Arbitration Manual. If only one party is a realtor, then the parties may voluntarily submit to arbitration in accordance with the NAR CEAM, or they may use any other arbitration system in the county in which the property is located, unless the parties mutually agree to hold arbitration elsewhere. Okay. And that's signed by both list agent and the cooperating broker. Any questions on this form? Tim, any comments?
No comments. Go ahead.
Okay. Any questions? Anything you're seeing out there that's been different, or have any questions or concerns that can be addressed today?
I have a question. It's Sherry.
Yes.
Oh, that broker fee agreement you just went over.
Mm-hmm.
It seems as if that's to replace the cooperating broker form that PAR came out with that had the arbitration in it. So our other option is to use the old cooperating broker form that Brett told us to save a copy of and download. Or is this broker fee agreement replace the old broker fee agreement when we were trying to do it for sale by owner and get paid? It's just a little confusing because obviously there's not really a listing agent when you had your old broker fee, which was like a FISBO.
Yeah, that's a totally different form. Sherry, this is for cooperating, so it's between two brokerages.
Okay.
The fee agreement is when there's no list agent.
So another way to answer that question, Sherry, I think I'm right when I say this, Brooks and Clun, is the form that Brett said to make a copy of and keep is a trademark copyrighted form from PAR. So in order to make it fillable into zip forms, we had to hire Brett to redo the form so that we could make it part of our company library, because we were not able to take their old form and make it part of our company library. Is that correct, Brooks and Kung?
Yeah, he was talking about the previous cooperating broker form, because the new one, there was a line in there that says something about the buyer agent cannot be paid unless it's as a result of a satisfied sale of the property, which means it actually has to settle. Whereas the old co-broke form, it didn't have that statement in there. So if, let's say, the seller backed out because of cold feet, you were still entitled to a commission because you bought an able and willing buyer. With the new one, because of the word satisfied or satisfactory in there, it almost concludes that the property has to settle in order for you to get paid. Is that
Didn't he
correct,
also,
Brooks?
he also said about the arbitration, because you're requiring an agent that if they're not part of the realtors to use a association, to use the realtors association for arbitration, which he thought could be an issue down the road.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's obviously a couple contentions he had with this new form. The good news is you have the ability to use all three.
Right.
You know, however you see fit to run your business, you have the access to all three of these forms. Currently, we do not have the old cooperating broker compensation agreement as a fillable form. However, you can, you know, add text fields within zip forms and DocuSign to make it editable digitally, or you can always print that out and use it the old-fashioned handwritten way. But we also have access to this new form that Brett drafted as a means of better defining the things he had contentions with. Obviously, this dispute and resolution is more in depth, and then also it clearly defines, you know, if the seller breaches terms, whether that broker fee is still payable. So again, you guys have access to all three and use them as you see fit, but they're all kind of interchangeable, and you can use any of those three options.
See co-brokes really questioning this form, just like we did in the past when other brokerages created their own forms and we're like, wait, that's a appraisal gap addendum. Does that really make sense? With this being 2 pages, I can see a lot of co-brokes like, what does this mean? But I get to deal with it when it happens.
And if you use it, you know, not everybody will use it. So,
Right.
Is this
You
the
know-
form that our office is now going to send out to people when they schedule showings on our properties?
it's the form that whatever form you choose to use when you take your listing is the form that we would send out.
So this is the one you would like us to use?
It depends on whether or not you want to use the old language or the new language.
Right.
I hate to make a recommendation either way. I don't know, Colin Brooks, what are your thoughts on, you know, these forms by PAR, some of which are old and some of which are new? I mean, what would you guys choose?
I personally like either the old CBC or this new form that Brett wrote, because we've experienced situations where the day of closings, you know, sellers say, hey, I no longer want to sell my property. And as a buyer's agent, that's not a situation you want to be in with that new cooperating broker compensation form, where you worked hours and hours putting this deal together. And at that point, there's no contingencies. Your buyer's ready to settle, and now you're no longer due a fee. That's my opinion. That's why I like the previous version and this new version that Brett drafted. Kong, what are your thoughts?
I'll give the Jim Goldsmith answer. It depends. What side are you on? If I'm the list agent, I want to use the new one to protect my seller because of the term successful transaction, right? But if I'm on the buyer side, if the seller backs out, I want to be paid, irregardless. So I'll use the old one or this form.
And Tom, not to avoid the question, because the meeting that we had 2 weeks ago with the Board of Realtors was not what I would call a very successful meeting for the brokers. There's so much going on in the industry. Some brokers like the new forms, some brokers don't like the new forms. Other brokers are choosing not to even use the co-broke forms. So if you were to listen to the guy from Bright MLS, he was preaching best practices for agents, not only in Pennsylvania, but across the country, are to not use broker compensation forms and the buyers pay their own broker and the seller pays their own broker, and that's the way business should be, best practices. Unfortunately, where I spoke up against him on that was the sense that, yeah, that might be the best practice in the way you want to do it, but that's not the way it's being done. You know, the lawsuit said that cooperating compensation can continue to take place. The only thing we're not allowed to do is publicize it in the MLS. It never said we weren't allowed to cooperate with commission. It simply said we weren't allowed to publish it in the MLS. So my point was, if you're telling us the best practices are for the buyers to pay their agent and the sellers to pay their agent, then PAR should have eliminated that out of the listing agreement. But they didn't eliminate it out of the listing agreement. So that by them having it on page 2 of the listing agreement, says that it's still legal to do. And if we're going to be offering a buyer's agent at commission, then we should be using the co-broke form. Okay. If we eliminate that language, then there's no need for the co-broke form. So it's really a hard question to answer as to which form to use, because they're both co-broke forms. It really depends upon the situation. But I suggested in the meeting that we have more meetings to continue to talk it out and figure out which ways agents wants to go. And the Board of Realtors seemed to be interested in that, although they didn't schedule any more meetings. And I've had a few brokers call me and say, hey, have you heard anything? Are we going to have more meetings? And I said, no, we haven't heard a word from the Board of Realtors. So everybody's kind of running and protecting themselves right now. They said that in this meeting that PAR is slow to make changes to forms. And I said, well, you know, considering this lawsuit and these changes were all made to these forms this year, why do we need to be slow to make changes? If these forms aren't right and they need amended, then PAR needs to put their foot on the gas pedal and move forward and make the amendments and changes to the mistakes that are in these forms. So I don't know if you've ever been to a meeting where you feel like you know it's a one-way train running south, and you don't get anywhere even though you voice your opinions. But that's kind of the way we feel right now. Is that, you know, Bright wants you to do it one way. The Pennsylvania Association of Realtors are giving you 4 or 5 different ways to do it, all of which are legal. And our job is to make sure that our agents are at least educated enough that whichever way an agent chooses, we understand it, I guess is the way that it needs to be. So whichever way an agent chooses to do their business, which all of those ways are legal, we just need to make sure everybody understands it. Brooks Kung, do you want to elaborate on what I just said and how you felt about that meeting?
Yeah, there's still some confusion amongst brokerages and such, and then there are brokers that have taken a stand that they're going to do it this way, which is fine, and it's not wrong or anything, and only time can really tell if which way is probably the better way. But you know, we're just in very murky waters right now. The only thing I can say is continue to do your business, meet with the clients, get a rock solid buyer agency, and you'll be protected. Yeah. The last 3 buyers I've met with, we've sat down in person, went over the buyer agency. I said, this is my commission that is owed to me from the buyer. And if we can get compensated by the listing side or the seller, that's great. That'll be less out of pocket for you. But just know that this is going to be your cost sheet for a house of this price range with these taxes, this insurance, and these closing costs plus commission.
So it's kind of a crazy situation out there. Like Kong said, that different companies are going it different ways, and some are taking a stance of not offering compensation, but they're offering the ability to write it in line 3A and negotiated compensation. So, but that really becomes challenging when the agent goes to list the property, because you need to figure when you list it, and if you're choosing compensation, or you're choosing concessions, you need to know which way this is going. So really, agents need to communicate with the agents either via text, email, or phone conversations. And if it is a phone conversation and you're finding out they are willing to give compensation, then you should really ask them to send it to you in a text message, so that way then you can continue to use the compensation form, whichever one you choose. But if they do not give you anything as far as a text message, email, or a compensation form, then you must put it in 3A in order to ensure you're going to get paid.
I have a question. If we already discussed this, I apologize. Is anybody getting calls from past clients, buyers and sellers that are getting these postcards regarding being compensated for this lawsuit?
We've had a few agents. I know Sherry Anderson had received 1 or 2 calls from past clients asking for a copy of their settlement sheet, which I think Sherry provided to them. They're sending it to everybody in the country that's been involved in a real estate transaction over the past several years. So they're just trying to get people to go along in this lawsuit. I don't know what they'll get, whether they'll get $50 or $100 or $1,000 if they become a participant in the lawsuit or not. But they're not going to walk away with a whole lot of money. The money is going to be split in the class action suit between the participants in it and the attorneys. So I'm sure you're going to get more and more calls with that, but it has nothing really to do with us. We're not in the lawsuit anymore. We've been removed from it, but you're certainly welcome to gather any information that they're asking for.
I guess that was my
If you wanna
question. How
provide
should we be responding to a buyer
So-
versus a seller in regards
So-
to these postcards?
PAR or NAR, I can't remember which one, sent out an email to all of us as members directing consumers to it's a web page that they have that has all the information regarding how they can get involved in the settlement. They specifically stated in that email that they don't want any of our members giving them advice on how to go about this, or just direct them to get more knowledge on the webpage, and that's it. You're not supposed to like help them through the process.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions or situations that have come up that we can talk out and see whether or not if somebody would have handled it a different way?
Hey Tim, it's Emily Weaver. I don't have a question or anything like that, but I just want to say thank you for your honesty. It really helps when we can see your transparency in this. I think it can be very confusing, and I just appreciate your honesty.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's the big thing is and what I said to the Board of Realtors is there's many different ways to handle these transactions. The important thing is that we all handle them properly and ethically, no matter which way you choose to do it. It would be a lot better probably if there weren't so many different ways to handle it. But unfortunately, the way the revisions have been written to these contracts, it's opened the door to more complex and confusion situations. And as long as we're handling it properly, that's the best.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? If not, otherwise, Brooks and Kong, thank you for going over these new forms. Whether you choose to use it as a, I know Shelley, you don't like the word dating form, but what are we calling it? A showing form or
Touring
Touring.
showing form.
touring, a
Touring or
touring
showing?
It's not, I think Brett Woodburn was the one that used the terminology dating form. We're not dating, we're touring agents, that type of thing. If you choose to do that and practice that, that's completely up to you. We're not telling you by any means that you have to do that. We're just literally giving you the option to do it if that's something you want to do. So we felt that once Brett brought that up to our attention at that meeting, that we should spend the money and at least have the form created for our company through an attorney, and at least have it available for those that want to choose that option. But gentlemen, thank you for going over that. If anybody has any confusion on this stuff, feel free to call any one of us, Brooks, Kong, myself, and we will help guide you through it. And as you have situations that come up during the week, to be honest, we like to hear about them and we like to help you through them, but it also gives us content to come back on these calls and go over this stuff with you guys, to let you know what other agents are experiencing. So again, thank you everybody for your participation, your questions, guys, on going over the forms, and we'll talk to you next week.